Okay, looking good. Hey everybody, it's me, David Earl, doing the streaming thing again, which I really enjoy, and I'm happy to see you all here. It's amazing to see everybody flooding in, and just ever so slightly intimidating, but I'm going to do my best to give you guys some good stuff today. Good afternoon, Peter M. I see you there. So today I actually wanted to talk a little bit about some I want to change the way that composers do things in Logic. A lot of composers, the way that they use Logic is they like to have this massive template with hundreds and millions of instruments and all available at the touch of a finger and all that jazz. And sort of in the course of dealing with a couple of those large templates out of Hollywood, decided that it might be a good time for us to rethink how we build templates and how we rely on templates, these massive templates. So everything's still looking good. Can everybody hear me okay? Everybody, am I showing up all right? I know I need a haircut, but what else is new? You guys know that's part of my, look is seeming like I just rolled out of bed, which I didn't, I guarantee. Let's see, sounding good, everything's looking good. Great. So anyway, I really wanted to talk about a couple of things, actually. I wanted to talk about creating track stacks and using them in interesting ways to build templates and building a sort of palette for when you work in film or TV or games, things like that. Also wanted to maybe go over some stuff that you may know already, but we should go over it again as far as how to stack instruments. And then also saving patches and thinking in patches instead of channel strip settings, which may be what we've been thinking about since, Logic 8 and 9. I want to start us moving away from thinking about channel strip settings and start thinking about patches, because saving patches are a bit more flexible and have a lot more involved with them than channel strip settings do. Hopefully I don't have any vulgarities in my patches folder. I may just have to be really quick about that. Anyway, so to get started, I'm going to show my screen. So there's Logic, right? And I started from a blank template, like absolutely nothing going on. And I have here a Steinway, right? Now, I brought this in as a patch, and I bet one of the things that you've noticed using patches in Logic is that you always get these buses, right? Here we have bus 1 and 2. They're automatically set up to use these different reverbs. And that can often be kind of a pain. Another thing that's kind of a pain is when you create a software instrument and it automatically comes up as an electric piano. That may also be kind of a pain. Well, I'm going to show you how to change that first. So let's get rid of this. I'm going to reset the channel strip over here. And I want to save this as a default channel strip. So I'll hit Y to open up my library. And down at the bottom of the library, we have save ... Over on the left-hand side, we also have clear user default. So I'm going to clear the user default. All right, that looks good. And I'm going to do a save. And I'm going to save this as... okay, yeah, it looks good. I didn't actually say any bad words in there. That's great. So I'm going to save this as default. It'll automatically put the dot patch at the end of it. So I hit save. And yes, I want to replace. So I have no default right now because I went over here to these settings and I cleared the user default. Now I'm going to define as default. So here's the default, right, that we just made. Nice clear channel strip. And I'm going to define as default. So now anytime you open a software instrument, that's going to come up. Now what's kind of cool about that is I have this great virtual mix rack from Steve Slate. And what I might like to do is have this set up with this virtual channel strip on it, set to the SSL 4G, turn my drive down, and set it to group 1, and then save that as my default. So I'm going to do save, and save as default. Come down here, define as default. So this will be my default channel strip. If I go into my patches and choose default, there's my default channel strip. If I go to, and I believe it's if we create a new instrument from here, default patch. And let's say I make 4 instruments. Now I've got 4 instruments and they all have the virtual mix rack on them. And I like that a lot because as I build my tracks out, there may be a set of plugins that I always use. When I was working on the Headlander, which is a video game that I just worked on, part of the sound of Headlander was sounding very 70s, sounding very vintage. And I wanted all of my channel strips that came in, I wanted to have tape saturation on them. I wanted to have my virtual mix rack set to, you know, this RC tube setting to get everything sounding saturated right off the bat, right out of the box. And so that's how I was doing it. Now let's get back to that subject of bringing in these sends all the time, like when we're grabbing instruments from our library and they have sends on them. So I'll go to this default, and let's say I go to piano and choose Steinway. So you see that the Steinway automatically has these 2 buses on, and that's kind of a pain because maybe I don't want auxiliaries made every time I bring an instrument in. Now they are intelligent. The reason why they wanted to do this, the Logic team, is they wanted to have these instruments already have some effects that were ready to go, and also kind of teach the user about how to properly use bus effects. Now these auxiliaries, it doesn't create auxiliaries every time that you import an instrument from the library. It's going to try and share resources so you don't end up with, you know, 40 buses and 40 auxiliaries that are tied to that instrument. So what I can do, if I don't like having my sends here, oh, by the way, those sends, I took them out of this channel strip, but they still exist. If I really want to get rid of them, I'll open up my mixer, go to these 2 auxiliaries, and we know they're auxiliaries partially because they have this little icon there, but also because their inputs are a bus. And I delete them here. Now they're really gone. So what we need to do if we don't want to see those buses anymore, yeah, I hear you. Asher Music, is that Jay? We'll see. He'll answer me back. So I'm going to go to my settings, and I'll choose Enable Patch Merging. Hi, Jay. So what I can do is turn off these sends, and that way we don't have to worry about things importing with sends all the time. Jay Asher's here, ladies and gentlemen, who's a total awesome badass in his own right. Okay. So now, okay, that's piano, and we talked about the buses and all that jazz. Now, about all this stuff that I was talking about, creating palettes and things like that, I do a lot of, you know, I have to kind of work in a lot of different ways. I'm a producer, and I'm also orchestral guy, and sometimes I have to do electronic music, and I like to have quick ways to pull up different types of instruments as a group together, ready to go and processed. So if I go into my patches, under user patches and orchestral, you may find something like Albion Orchestra. If I choose that, it'll take a second, but essentially what it's going to do is it's going to load up a whole bunch of instruments at once and place them in a track stack. I'm not sure how much processing I have going on this, but see, it's even got a cute little, you know, here's my little orchestral family. How cute. I'll close my library, and I'll open this track stack, and as you see, I've got brass high, brass mid, brass low, woodwinds, and strings, and then there's a piano at the end. These are all contact instruments. I didn't do any processing to them. On the track stack itself, I don't have much processing either, so this is still pretty basic. But essentially what it's done is it's loaded this contact instrument with the proper library, and the library has all of its proper settings as well within Contact. So yeah, this is set to staccato, and I probably want to have legato in there as well, but anyway. So as you see, I instantly brought in this great template of sounds, and I could use that as part of my palette. If I come down below here and go to the next software instrument, which I created with Command Option S, I'll go back into my library again, and if I choose User Patches and go to something like Headlander and choose the Fondalarium. So this is actually this was one of the instruments that I used for Headlander, and it's got an instrument loaded in, looks like a Scarby electric piano, and then it's got the Kramer tape app, which is from Waves, and it's got a FabFilter Pro Q set on it, a very intense filter.